Hey buds, Socialism Done left here for a little addendum to the detransitioning video about hundreds of young trans people seeking help to return to original sex. This one just aimed to point out how stupid conservative YouTubers who covered the video were. Let's take this one for example. The amazing Lucas, 219,000 views on hundreds of children detransition, or as he spelled it, detransitioned.
You mean a 13-year-old got it wrong? No. Oh my goodness. So one of you guys shot me the story from Sky News, and in the story it goes on to say that there are hundreds of children that are coming to the realization that, maybe I'm not a Tyrannosaurus Rex after all. Maybe mutilating my body and taking hormones to change myself probably isn't the best solution. This now brings us...
Now, as you'd expect from this kind of content, Lucas never actually analyzes the article in any depth. He never figures out if it's correct, he never does any digging. But, that's fair. The amazing Lucas is just a bodybuilder. He doesn't have any journalistic expertise, any journalistic training. And the video that he's citing in this video is produced by Sky News. It's a professional media outlet, and so one would expect it to be publishing reputable content. Now, of course, Sky News is owned by Rupert Murdoch, and so you'd expect it to have a bit of a conservative bent. But even watching the video, just the 3-minute 18 video, you'd hear this line.
There's currently no data for how many in the trans community detransition, and to talk about it can be viewed as transphobic.
So if someone says there's no data, but wants you to believe that something is a really big problem, that should set off alarm bells in your mind. Let's watch journalist Tim Pool read this exact same line and see if it sets off any alarm bells in his mind.
There is currently no data to reflect the number who may be unhappy in their new gender or who may opt to detransition to their biological gender. Charlie detransitioned and went public with her story last year and said she was stunned by the number of people she discovered in a similar position.
Nope, no alarm bells ringing, and probably not too many bells and whistles going off in that brain anyway. This line is virtually the same as occurs in this video. And if you ever read no data, like I said, you should be skeptical of someone trying to make a big claim about some social group. Now, Tim Pool claims to be a journalist, and the most basic thing you could do as a journalist is just fucking Google what you're talking about, like detransitioning statistics. If you did, the first article you'd get is detransitioning from Wikipedia, which I'll get to in a bit later, and the second is a survey study of surgeons' experience with regret about transgender patients. This study, provided here, published in PRS Global Open, that is Zenker et al. 2019 or 2018, is actually the article that I was citing in this WBR article before, the one which found that out of about 18,000 to 27,000 patients, there were 36 transgender reversals. I swear to God, I tried so hard to find this study, and all I needed to do was fucking search detransitioning statistics, and I'm so pissed that this man couldn't even do such basics of research as this. But whatever, no big deal. So, with the full data, we can slightly upwardly revise the rate of people who regretted their transition surgery as according to the plastic surgeons who actually performed them. Of the 22,725 patients who were treated, 62 experienced regret and reported it to their plastic therapist, and of those, 38 detransitioned, or had some form of detransition procedure. So that's a slightly higher rate than we had here, because we were only calculating the portion of trans people who had reversal surgeries, so only 36 out of about 18,000. Whereas in this one, we'd want to calculate the portion who regretted their surgery, even if they didn't reverse it, out of the 22,000. If we do so, we get 62 of 22,725, which is about 0.272, which is about 3%. Whereas before, when we ran the numbers over here, we got 36 of 18,000, which is about 2%. So this is about 0.2%. So we went from about 0.2% to about 0.3%. Which, while an increase, is not an increase of very much. These are really, really low rates of regret for these procedures. You're talking about a procedure that is 99.7% effective. So this doesn't present good evidence for the case that many people are detransitioning or that this is a problem worth talking about in any serious way. While I do agree that the people who experience this may be experiencing serious problems, it's not worth bringing up in a broader discussion about trans issues if you don't want to be seen as transphobic, because this kind of rhetoric is explicitly the kind of stuff that transphobes are pushing. Like I said, WND is talking about it, Sky News is talking about it. Whatever. Let's say you didn't even get to Article 2. Let's say you only went to Article 1. You would have found the exact same data there. A 2018 survey of WPAF, the World Professional Association for Transgender Health Surgeons, found that approximately 0.3% of patients who underwent transition-related surgery later requested detransition-related surgical care. They're citing this study. Like, the first article cites the second article. It's not hard. The 2015 U.S. Transgender Survey found that 8% of respondents who had transitioned reported ever having detransitioned, and 62% of that group had later returned to living in a transgender role. So, this also presents a higher rate of detransitioning, of maybe about 8%. But in terms of permanent detransitioning, we'd only want to include the 38% of the group who permanently detransition. So if we just do, again, some back-of-the-napkin calculations, 8 times 1 minus 0.62, we get 3.04%. 3%, which is actually not that different from the regret rate that we got in the Sweden study, which was about 2.2%. So it looks like the regret rates are somewhere between 0.3 and 3% for sexual reassignment surgery and hormone therapies, which is a really low regret rate. A 97% non-regret surgery is really fucking good. So in short, there's just no statistical evidence that detransitioning is a large problem in the trans community, and it should not be used as a serious argument against providing trans services to trans people or people who might be trans. I figured I'd also just note, Breitbart News, in their coverage of this article, is covering a speech by this guy. Let's listen to him.
Today we have a worldwide ministry that reaches over 300 million people a year. And people now are detransitioning in the hundreds. People are transgender until they're not transgender anymore. And they come back to realize that they never needed hormones. They never needed surgery. They just needed to identify what was causing them to behave the way they were behaving.
So this guy is Walt Heyer, who you might recognize from this video from Timba on Toast. Here he is at the Heritage Foundation talking about trans issues, and he's the dude who published this bogus article about a mom dressing their 6-year-old son as a girl and threatening their dad with losing his son for disagreeing. So, in short, this guy's a liar. You shouldn't trust him. Most of the people that are talking about this can't do the basics of fact-checking on the issue. Don't trust what conservative news or conservative YouTube tells you. I just don't know how else to say this. They're either idiots or they're malicious. I assume Hanlon's razor, so I assume they're stupid, but for people like Walt Heyer, who's been in this movement for so long, I kind of have to assume they're malicious. But whatever. Either way, you shouldn't trust them.